Imagine circling the moon, 3,596 kilometers from the nearest human being. No voices, no weather, no life. Only the hum of machines and the black silence of space. In 1971, astronaut Alfred Worden lived this for 3 days. Most people expect terror in that kind of silence. But when he returned, he said something different. He called it euphoria. That's the riddle. Silence doesn't just quiet the mind. It changes who's in charge. But for most, silence is not peace. It's fracture. Sailors adrift for weeks forget their own names. Volunteers locked in sealed rooms start hearing voices. Here's the mechanism in one breath. Input down. Prediction up. Neuroscience calls it predictive coding. Your brain is always guessing the world, running models to reduce surprise. This is the free energy principle. Minimize error. Stay alive. When the world vanishes, those errors spike. With nothing left to model, the brain turns inward. And that's where things crack. 1968. The first non-stop solo race around the world. One man entered desperate. His name was Donald Crowhurst. His boat was unfinished. His skills not enough. But he'd staked his home, his fortune, his family on this voyage. Almost immediately, he fell behind. Turning back meant ruin. So he made a choice that cut him loose from land and from reality. He began forging his coordinates, sending false reports, building the fiction of a glorious journey while his vessel drifted broken in the Atlantic. But a single lie demands another. Soon he was not just faking progress. He was constructing a new reality. For 240 days he drifted alone, keeping 2 logbooks, one clean and triumphant, one raw, confessing collapse. Inside that second book, he mapped a mind in free fall. Isolation plus guilt built an entire private mythology. Not enlightenment, not peace. A story that consumed him. Because the psyche, under pressure, will always choose coherence over truth, even if the coherence is fatal. You don't need months at sea to break. Science already built the trap. It's called the Ganzfeld. Ping-pong balls cut in half over your eyes. Red light washing the room. White noise hissing through headphones. Within minutes, the brain starts spitting ghosts. Lights that aren't there. Voices whispering from nowhere. Not a malfunction. Here's what's happening. Starved of sensory input, the brain begins amplifying its own neural noise, searching for patterns in static until it hallucinates order where there is none. You don't hallucinate because something broke. You hallucinate because the brain refuses to accept nothingness. Take it one step further. The float tank. No sound. No sight. Water heated to match your skin. No gravity cues, no clocks, no world. stripped of every anchor, your sense of self begins to dissolve. Some call it hallucination. Some call it ego death. Whatever you name it, the brain invents a reality rather than admit it has none. And here's the part most people won't admit. You don't need psychedelics to see things that aren't there. You just need silence. The mind will decorate the void on its own. Carl Jung didn't go on a vision quest. He cracked open. Night after night, visions tore through him. Voices he couldn't ignore. Images of blood, gods, corpses. He called it a confrontation with the unconscious. Others would have called it madness. And they wouldn't have been wrong. Most people drown when the psyche breaks open. Jung did something ruthless. He didn't resist it. He let it in. For 6 years he wrote what became the Red Book. A record of encounters with figures he treated as real. Philemon, the winged old man. Salome, the blind prophetess. Elijah, the stern guide. Isdubar, a titan he had to carry like a corpse across the desert of his own mind. These weren't metaphors. They were fragments of himself given form. And instead of suppressing them, he argued with them, questioned them, wrestled them onto the page. That's the difference. Crowhurst lied to himself and got eaten alive. Jung built a container and survived the descent. Integration instead of collapse. But don't romanticize it. It wasn't enlightenment. It was trench warfare with his own psyche, and it left him changed forever. Buddhism isn't incense and smiles. It's a survival system for people who would otherwise shatter under their own minds. Strip away the temple art and the chanting, and what you have is a technology. A set of drills designed to drag you inward, stage by stage, without letting you drown. And here's the part no one on Instagram will tell you. The early stages are ugly, rage, grief, trauma clawing to the surface. Meditation doesn't erase it. It detonates it. That's why the tradition insists on ritual containers, teachers, monasteries, communities, because without scaffolding, people crack. Some even go psychotic. It's not rare. It's predictable. But the gamble is this. If you keep going, if you don't flinch, you pass through the annihilation of the ego. Not death of the body. Death of the story that says you're solid and permanent. On the other side of that collapse, Buddhists say, lies emptiness. Which isn't nothing. It's the absence of a prison. The same void Worden brushed against in orbit. Most cultures build myths to shield themselves from silence. Buddhism built a system to weaponize it. Alfred Worden didn't meditate in a cave. He didn't chant mantras or chase enlightenment. He strapped into a capsule and was hurled into a void no human nervous system was built to survive. 3 days alone in lunar orbit. No sound, No weather, no life. Just the earth, hanging like an ornament, and the black mouth of space swallowing everything else. Most people would beg for distraction. Worden reported euphoria. But don't mistake that for comfort. Awe isn't gentle. It's a psychic ambush. Neuroscience shows awe doesn't just collapse the ego. It silences the default mode network, the brain's self-referential loop, the voice that won't shut up. Studies link it to reduced depression, lowered inflammation, even an emotional reset. Not because awe is soothing, because awe is too big to categorize. The ego dies for a moment because the brain cannot process the scale of what it sees. That's why awe feels holy and terrifying at once. It strips the story you tell yourself. It makes you small, insignificant, and for a moment, free. Worden stumbled into what monks and mystics spend lifetimes preparing for. But here's the cruel part. Awe doesn't care if you're ready. It rips the mask off, and you either integrate it, or you don't. 3 doors into the abyss. Crowhurst, the liar who drowned in his own invention. Jung, the surgeon who cut into his psyche and stitched the pieces together. Worden, the astronaut ambushed by awe. Different entries. Same abyss. And the abyss doesn't care. It will devour you or deliver you depending on a single rule. Bring a container. Without it, the story runs wild and eats you alive. With it, the fragments arrange themselves into a whole you never knew was there. That's the secret people hate to admit. The mind doesn't fear silence. It fears incoherence. And if you don't build a vessel to catch what rises, silence will hand you madness instead of meaning. This is why cultures invented ritual. Why monks built communities. Why Jung wrote the Red Book instead of burning it. Not to worship the void, but to survive it. The world trains you to fear quiet. Not because quiet is empty, because quiet reveals who is driving. Noise is a drug. It keeps the weaker story in charge. It keeps you from noticing the room you actually live in. Here is the click. Silence is not absence. Silence is the medium everything moves through. You are not cut off inside it. You are connected by it. The mind tells you that the self is a fortress. 4 walls, small windows, a guard at the door. Silence walks in and laughs. It shows you the walls are painted on the air. What comes up in the quiet is not the enemy. It is the unpaid bill. It is the unclaimed power. It is the voice you buried so the timeline would accept you. You do not need a softer world. You need a stronger container. A story that is true enough to hold your monsters without letting them run the house. This is what the descent was for. Crowhurst showed the price of a story with no witness. Jung showed the price of a witness with no flinch. Worden showed the shock that tears the mask. and hands you the horizon. Bring that home, not as a mood, as a standard. Let your life be a chamber that does not lie to you. Let your speech be a ritual that does not betray you. Let your attention be a blade that cuts through the feed and lays the day open. The point is not to become nobody. The point is to stop pretending you were somebody small. There is nothing humble about hiding. There is nothing brave about noise. Stand in the quiet until the old name falls off. Stand until the next shape arrives. Stand until the fear learns who it works for. You are not the story gasping for air. You are the air. You are the room. You are the one who decides what is allowed to speak in here. Carry that back into the city, into your work, into the face that meets the next bright screen. When the world hammers its distractions against your door, remember this: silence is not where you disappear. Silence is where you stop disappearing. It is where the real size of you becomes obvious. Hold to that. The chamber is built. The witness is awake. The noise will not win. Hear the bell in the dark. The descent is finished. The chamber is built. If you carried something back from this silence, leave your mark. Write the words, circle drawn in the comments. Let the algorithm see the witness is awake. Subscribe if you are a part of this work. We are building a chamber where the mythic returns, and your voice is part of the spell. If this stirred something you can't quite put back to sleep, that's your cue. Step into the next layer with my book, Mental Magic for the Modern Magician. Remaining sovereign in a world that wants your soul. It's written to help you cut invisible strings and start running the ritual yourself. Then grab the free ritual guide and watch the initiation playlist to go deeper. Links are waiting below. Until next time.